Hello, my friend, and welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and I am Heather, and I am super excited that you are here. And I just want to let you know that you're going to hear some tips and some tricks, some ideas, all to help you live your happiest and healthiest life. It is called Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, then you can take better care of others. And my goal is to make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way. I am really happy that you're here. Your true self is waiting. So it is time to step up and thrive. Hello, my super amazing friends. You heard it. This is the Back to Me podcast. Da, da, da. I feel like there should be applause right there or cheering or something. Yay! And today I'm talking to, I didn't ask you how to say your name, Dr. Dolores. I'm talking to Dr. Dolores.
And you are.
And I am. How do you pronounce your last name?
Fazzino.
Fazzino. It seemed too easy. And we're going to talk about some pretty excellent things, I think. So for people who are watching or listening to the audio, you can't see that under Dolores's name is like nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, energy whisperer, and I think we could have put a whole bunch of other things too, which is pretty cool. So welcome, my friend.
Well, thank you, Heather. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to speak with your audience as well.
And I love that your background matches the brand colors. It's like you planned it.
My favorite colors.
Right?
Seriously. I had a green room way before it was even popular. I've had the same color in this office for the last 20 plus years. So
wow.
Yeah. So I'm a visionary, I guess.
Ahead of your time.
Yep. I was planning ahead many decades before.
So thinking about decades before, how does one come to become down this road? Like, I assume when you were a little kid, you didn't say, I'm going to be an energy whisperer, and that there's something along your road that brought you to where you are today. And I'm always super curious what it is that has brought someone to their current place.
Well, we all have our interesting stories, and, I'm actually in my mid 60s now. So I was a product of the 1960s and grew up in the 60s.
I came from the 1960s, but
there you go. So, but I was born an empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person when it wasn't really, that was like considered being the black sheep of the family, basically. But I think many of us who are on a spiritual pathway were strategically placed in our family groups so we could assist with their evolution and healing the ancestral stuff that comes through. So, my childhood was very interesting because in our household, we weren't allowed to feel. And when you're an empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person, that's like a death sentence for you pretty much because, this is who you are. So my mom's MO for anything emotional or whatever, it's ignore it, it'll go away. So when I would try to do that, it wasn't going away, it was getting bigger. And I used to tell my mother, it's not going away, it's getting bigger. So for me to survive my childhood, I needed to channel that energy into something. So I really excelled in music. And in fact, I was on a trajectory to become a concert clarinetist. And in the 11th hour, I changed my area of study because also what was happening in my young childhood and teenage years was my dad acquired a hospital infection when he had back surgery back in the 60s, which was like almost a death sentence for people because they didn't have the technology or the medications that they gradually advanced to in the 70s and 80s to assist that. So my dad was in and out of the hospital in my childhood as well. And then I had from my mother who was like, ignore it, it'll go away type of thing. So it wasn't until the mid 1970s that my mom got very disenchanted with Western medicine and was looking at something alternative. And remember, 1970s, we didn't have Google MD. We didn't have electronic stuff. We had the National Enquirer.
Oh, Lord, she didn't use the National Enquirer, did she?
She did. She found an article that was They were writing up a feature article about a man who had the ability to heal people with laying on of hands. And he was a minister from Cairo, Michigan. And in 1975-ish, he had been doing this work for well over 25 years. Now, also take into consideration, this was considered wacko quacko back in the 70s, but now it's very accepted in today's, time and place. So my mom explored going that route, and Reverend Holmes, there's more of a story with that, but due to time, constraints of our interview here, I'm giving you the brief version. So Reverend Holmes came to our home, and what had happened was he realized that my dad had a leg length discrepancy, which we all knew. I don't know how this man knew this. My dad was barefoot in his robe when he met Reverend Holmes, but he knew this about my father. And he said to my dad, when my dad sat down, put both your legs up. And sure enough, there was a 1-inch gap between the longer and the shorter leg. So he ended up praying over my father, and he touched his belly, solar plexus, and his head, crown chakra, said some prayers and quoted some scripture from the Bible. And 3 minutes passed, and he said, put both your feet up, and they were both the same length. Wow. In that moment, I knew that my life changed forever, and it was my mission to go into healthcare to bridge the physical with the spiritual and the visible with the invisible. Now, my dad started crying like a baby because he was the biggest skeptic, and he really needed to see evidence that something was actually happening. The good news is that after that visit with the Reverend, my dad went back for diagnostic tests, and they found no evidence of his illness. He never had to revisit it again, and he was supposed to have a major surgery to correct it. Never had to have that, and he passed away probably about 13 years ago at the age of 80. So,
good for him.
Yeah. So the thing is, that was my, I want to say, initiation. And let me tell you, it's been an interesting journey because I've been in healthcare close to 45 years. And, knowing this, being a visionary and stuff like that, I'm thinking to myself, how the heck am I going to maneuver through this? Because I have this whole system that is like, they think you're crazy. So, you know what? I just continue to live my life and just be fully present and work on myself and listen to myself and listen to my intuition on things. And I am very happy to say that over the time of those 45 years, things are we're progressing and starting to progress to where they are now. And they're going to continue to grow and grow into what it's supposed to be. So yes, it's been a very interesting journey. I knew that for me, I needed to get my doctorate in nursing so people wouldn't know that I'm like a crazy, whatever.
It gives you some cred, right? Because it's like,
no, I
went through the learning, I did the things.
Exactly. And I'm still in clinical practice, and my area of expertise is actually surgery. And I'm an assistant surgeon. So I assist on surgical procedures, and I've probably assisted on over 20,000 procedures in the last 30 years of all varying things. Yet for me, it is like a wealth of a playground for me, because remember, I work not only in one dimension, but multiple dimensions. So I'm privy to seeing a lot of things that beyond what people could physically see with their eyes, I see a lot of other things too. So it's been a very rich experience for me, and it has allowed me to expand and grow and to assist other people. And circling back to what our topic is today, it's about learning how to become your own best friend, because what we know is that everything starts with us first. Okay. Now, I don't care, and I'm a recovering codependent and a recovering Catholic, recovering whatever. I'm a lot of recovering stuff.
Recovering overachiever. I'm a recovering overachiever.
Oh, yeah. Because the thing is, and a recovering perfectionist. Oh, my God. So the point is, it's like we had taken on so much projected material from society, our families, and, everything, that we've taken this on as our truth, when in essence, it is nowhere near who we are. So we take this on usually by our families of origin, our ancestral lineage and stuff, but it's not who we are, but we are taking it on as our own. And I have an additional perspective on this. I think some of us do this on an unconscious level because we feel it's our job to heal other people. And we do this on an unconscious stance. So once you become aware that this is what is happening, this is where you start to step into your personal power. Now, let's talk about the whole thing about becoming your own best friend, because I find what's really interesting is that everything starts with us first, okay? And I'm going to give the analogy. We are just a drop, like a little pebble in the whole pond of collective consciousness. What we do, that little pebble, what we say to ourselves in the quiet of our mind, how we treat ourselves in the quiet of our mind is in that little pebble. It drops into collective consciousness. And you know, when you drop a pebble in a pond, it ripples out. So it affects everything. Okay, you're contributing to collective consciousness. It is no surprise to me that we are in the state of what we are in our world today because of that little piece. We are all responsible. It's not that this hate and anger is outside of ourselves. Yes, it triggers us, but it's something deeper within us that we could shift and change and heal ourselves and really make an impact in collective consciousness. So, case in point, what do we say to ourselves in the quiet of our minds? Oh, I'm not good enough. I hate myself. My body's ugly. These are all things we judge and criticize ourselves. But yet, remember that pebble? That goes out into collective consciousness. So there's a lot of judging and criticizing out in our external world, right?
Yeah.
How do we shift that? It's really easy. It's about having self-compassion right now. This is so important right now. And we're all guilty of the judging, the internal judging and criticizing. How we shift that is by just even focusing on the word self-compassion. Because remember, everything is energy. What you see in our offices is a physical demonstration of energy, a very dense form. But our thoughts, beliefs, and what we say to ourselves and our emotions are like radio waves. It's still energy. It's there, and it affects everything. So self-compassion, the word self-compassion, vibrates at a higher frequency than I hate you and you're ugly and you're never going to be worth anything. Okay, so when you start focusing just on the word, the vibration of the word, this is how this dissipates and comes to neutrality, the lower vibrating stuff, and you're going to raise your frequency and energy. It's really that simple.
That they did that experiment with water, right? Remember Dr. Yamamoto?
Masaru Emoto, yes.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
I know. And it's true. Words, it's interesting. I did a blog a long time ago about, the sticks and stones can break your bones. Well, maybe words can hurt you because they are energy and abracadabra. We use words to create spells and we create spells on ourselves.
Yes.
And it's funny because I've been doing this meditation lately that it's a guided meditation by Jeffrey Allen. No, it's not. It's Bert Goldman. And it's like every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. And it's like a little song.
Yeah.
Love it. And it's interesting that you made the comment about going back a little bit, the codependency and feeling like you need to heal all these people. And that's, I guess, where the archetype of wounded healer comes from. It's like these people are like, I need to save everyone. Well, if you could save yourself first, then you'd actually have capacity to save everybody else, right? It's like,
do that.
Stop ignoring yourself because that's not helping you, which is where this podcast comes from,
Yeah, and it's very true. I mean, I think it's, what we're witnessing in our society right now is the amplification of a lot of things that need to be addressed, not just globally, but even internally.
I remember the first time I went to a naturopath like 25 years ago, and this stuck with me. Because he said, this is going to make you feel better. I was having some health problems. He said, but it's going to feel worse first. So, and he called it the healing crisis. So I feel like the energy of the world, and I feel like there's a lot of people, like your community is called I'm Awake Now What? That's what it's called, right?
Yes.
So I feel like there's all these people who are realizing, hold on, this is not the world that I wanted to be in. This is not the way the world should be. And they're starting to recognize that they have an impact on it. And they're thinking, okay, so what do we do now? But at the same time, the old way is like, no, we want it to stay the same. So they're kind of butting heads. And the old way is kicking and screaming to try and keep things the same, where the new way is like, no, we're going. It's such an interesting time to be alive.
It is. And we all chose to be here at this time. This is the most amazing thing. So we get to witness this.
Well,
Now,
and I think some of us, like we did all choose to be here, but for some of us, I feel like it's like we are supposed to be here to help.
absolutely. That's what I mean. It's a
Yeah.
choice. I think a lot of times before we were born, there was this clarion call going out to the ethers and saying, come to planet Earth. They're going through a major crisis and we need your expertise, because many people who are here come from other galaxies and planets, and they have tool sets and skills that are very assistive into what we're going into now as humanity's evolution. So, and the thing is that people's true gifts and essences are coming forth now, because this is the time for it to come through. So people are probably finding that they're very talented, or they have these gifts that they never knew about, that all of a sudden they could do certain things, whereas 20, 30 years ago, it was dormant.
And I feel like some of the circle of people that I know don't want it. Their human self is like, no, 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 no. This isn't right. I don't want this. It's too scary.
Yeah.
Where, you and I are out there going, come on, join the party. Let's go. So
I think it takes a lot of courage. It takes bravery. And yeah, it's scary as hell. I will put, when this
you did
was
it way before it was normal.
That's right. And I didn't have the resources or anything like that. I had to meander through it, just like you, Heather, by yourself. And it's just like, now there's so many opportunities, because there's so many people who've gone through this already, that, this is actually a good thing, even though it has the illusion of being such a bad thing. It's the illusion part that's scary. And I think you really hit the nail on the head, as far as it gets worse sometimes before it actually gets better.
Because it appears to get worse.
Yeah, because the thing is, all that stuff that we're seeing now has been hidden, unconscious, and covert. Now the big light is being shown on it, and we could see it. And it's like these dark things that were covert, they realize the gig's up. Okay. So they're scrambling and trying to, make something happen, or, fighting for, their last stand or whatever. And this is a good sign, because that means once that happens, we could see it, it shifts, and we could do something about it. Right. So it's all good. It's all good. It's a necessary step in our evolution.
And change is always it's always disruptive to some extent. And it's meant to be disruptive. Change is meant to be disruptive, right? Change is meant to disrupt what's actually happening now, which is interesting. Because just before this, I was talking to my Akashic Records reader, and we were talking about disruption, because the record keepers were having me do something I didn't want to do. And I was like, stop making me do this. Why are you making me do this? But I did it anyway. Yeah. And you can feel that resistance to change, and the change, because like any kind of changes has some degree of unknown, which is where we kind of start to get worried. But do we need to? Or is that the human side of us that's going, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared.
I think it's the human side of us because we want things in nice little boxes
Oh, do
where
we?
everything has its place and stuff. And, I think from the year 2008 moving forward, any type of certainty that we had as a collective whole got changed. That was when we had that big financial crisis in 2008. And it's like, it seems like since 2008, there's no such thing as certainty anymore. So to me, it was a wake up call for humanity that maybe we need to come within ourselves to gain certainty within ourselves, because when you're certain within yourself, what's going on around you has no effect on you. Right?
Yes. That, by the way, is a brilliant statement. And I want people to pause and think about that, because we have this fear of all of these things going wrong. But that certainty inside yourself is so key. Like you just dropped a truth bomb on the world right there. And people will, like, I can hear them. How do I become certain about myself? I just don't know what's going on. So so if you were talking to someone saying, I don't know what to do, like what kinds of things are we doing to help find that? Like, I do lots of meditation and grounding, but what?
Well, the other thing too that I think is really important is that people need to learn how to be instead of do. Okay. And doing is more of a being in your head, trying to make something happen, trying to figure it out. It's also living in the past, living in the future. It's not in present moment. It's like the analogy of pushing a boulder up a hill. There's a lot of force. There's a lot of trying to make something happen. Okay. That's in your head. When you are being, you're actually in your heart space. When you're in your heart space, you're in the present moment. It doesn't matter. Now, the key to all of this is learning a mindful activity. Okay. A mindful activity is the gateway to get into being. Now, a mindful activity is anything that we do that allows us to lose all sense of time and place. It could be as formal as sitting in yoga position in meditation, or as simple as going out in nature for a walk.
I've heard that knitting does it too.
Yes. And the key is that it's so important for people. Each one of us are individuals. It's going to be different from person to person. So it's about you as an individual finding the thing that's going to allow you to have that sense. Now, we've all had those moments where we have gotten so lost in a project or a reading thing or a craft that it seems like only 10 minutes went by and 4 hours go by. This is what a mindful activity is anything that's going to allow you to be right here, right now, where you lose all sense of time and place. And like I said, it could be as formal as, sitting in lotus position and, chanting to like, playing with your kids. Your pets are in the moment.
Oh, they're always in the moment.
And, just let them love on you and just be fully present with them. You also have to remember too, we have 3 brains. We have the brain, the mind brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain. They all need to play nicely in the sandbox. And when you look at the whole linear thing, gut, heart, and brain, if you were to superimpose a figure of 8 on the top of it, with the heart being the intersection of the two, it's like they're constantly in flow. So it's not like you're ignoring one and, giving more emphasis to the other. When we are in a state of doing and being, we've been programmed to be in do. And if you're not in constant motion, you're not viewed as a productive member of society. That's the bullshit. Okay.
Total bullshit.
And so the thing is, I invite people, start from a mindful activity so you get grounded in your body. When you're in your body, this is where you're able to be right here, right now in the moment. When you're right here, right now in the moment, this is where you get to listen to your intuition and hear it, because it's too noisy out there when you're doing it, right?
It's funny
So,
because I think the brain is the bully in the sandbox, kicking sand all over everybody. I'm
it's
in
true,
charge here.
but we
Grr.
all need to play nicely in the sandbox together. So my point being is that when you're able to start from being, this is where you get your divine downloads. Your intuition is going, you're going to have a relationship with yourself and your intuition and your higher self, and you're going to be able to be more productive doing less in a shorter period of time.
Have you seen the book Do Less, Be More?
I have.
Isn't that a good book? I
It's a
love it.
great book.
It's a great book. And it's true. I mean, we have been programmed to think that if we're not doing something all the time, we are taking up space, right?
Sometimes that's the gift, taking up the space, because when you're sitting in that being thing, you're observing, you're witnessing, and you're getting information from your higher self, your intuition, your God spark, whatever, your chi, whatever that is, it's all the same thing. And this is where you're able to make, your next choice. And I'm just going to share a really story from my personal life to drive this home. I'm a cat lover. I have cats, and one day I needed to take Max the cat to the vet at dark 30 in the morning, and I'm not a morning person. So herding a cat. So I finally herded Max in his carrier and brought him to the vet at 7:00 in the morning. And I was so excited to drive back because I'm going to go back to sleep and just sleep for a couple more hours. But no, there was a sign on the road that said garage sale. And all of a sudden, my car just went in that direction. And my higher self was talking to me like, you need to go to that. I was like, oh, no, I don't. I need to go back to bed. I'm really tired. So I'm having this conversation with my higher self. So, of course, my higher self won. I parked the car 3 houses down from where the garage sale. I'm still having an argument with them. It's like, I don't know why I need to go to this garage sale. I should be having the garage sale. I have so much crap that I need to get rid of. I don't need to buy anybody else's crap. I go in there, go through it. I come back out and I said, see, I didn't get anything. However, remember I parked 3 houses down. When I was walking back at the second house, somebody pulled out of the driveway, and it was actually a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in a long time. And she said, oh my God, I needed to get in touch with you because there was a professor at the California Institute of Human Sciences that wanted to contact you because she wanted to meet you. I said, okay, great. So long story short, I met up with this professor. I ended up teaching a course there, and it had always been on my bucket list to speak at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York.
You did?
She was the director of programs there. And so I got invited to speak there. So that's as easy as that was. And if I didn't listen, I would have missed that whole opportunity.
Right. And
okay,
it's true.
So it's like you get the divine download, and then you go into divine doing, and then you come back, and it's like the figure of 8, and it's like it's always in flow, and you will get more accomplished in a shorter period of time from the non-typical way that we are programmed to think that we have to make something happen.
And what I find interesting is when I started doing, talking to my higher self and getting my information of what to do and where to go. And for a while, I was like, I'm not getting it. I don't get it because I've been ruined by television. Yeah. I call it ruined by television. Maybe that's not a good way to say it. For me, having an expectation of how the messages were supposed to arrive, I was joking with my friend. I didn't hear a big voice from heaven going, Heather, go this way.
No, and you won't. It's the subtlety.
Right.
And you have to be quiet enough or still enough to experience that.
But one day I did, I realized how it took me a little while, but I realized how it interacts with me. So I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So I can pay it. And I do have to actually stop and ground myself to have a conversation. And one day, because I'll ask it, should I take this bus home or this bus home? And my intention in asking it is always, how do I get home the fastest? Of course. Mm-hmm. And one day it said, take this bus. I'm like, I don't want to take that bus because it's too slow and I have to walk too far. And it said, take this bus. I'm like, fine. And so I was on the streetcar and I could see the bus I had to take. And I'm like, it's going to leave. Do I have to run? And my higher self said, yes, you have to run. I was like, okay. So I ran to the bus and I jumped on, and there was a client like you. I hadn't seen her in a year. She said, oh, and she was in a place where she nearly needed help. And that wasn't her bus. And she doesn't even live in this end of town. It was just, I was like, what are you doing on this bus? She was going to see someone. I was like, oh my God. Hi, it's been so long. So it was like my higher self was like, go take that bus because I told you to. And I listened, thank goodness.
Good for you. Good for you.
Right?
So I mean, it's like once you start having little taste of this, it's like you're like it piques your attention, and you're like, okay, I think yes,
listening.
Thank you.
And it
doesn't out of my own way. Thank you.
Yeah, and it doesn't always turn out the way you think it's supposed to. So if I'm like, they say go this way, and something happens, I'm like, well, that wasn't good. You don't know what the end result of that thing is, right? Yeah. It doesn't have to be like, oh, and then I signed a book deal. It can be like something that's started a domino effect that you won't see, and you might not even be aware of somewhere down the road.
True. Very true. Right? Very true.
So you just have to trust that it's always right.
Absolutely. And so, becoming your own best friend is learning how to trust your intuition, speaking kind words to yourself, and just, really, showing up for yourself. I think one of the other things that I want to just share, because I know our time's coming to an end, is that how many people behave one way in their personal life, but when they go to work, it's like they do like a 180 and they're not being true authentic. I mean, they would never allow the things that are happening at work to happen in their personal life, but they're allowing it there. It's like you need to really focus on being aligned with who you are, because that is self-care as well. And that's True. Like showing up for yourself and being your own best friend. No.
And even in relationships, work relationships, yes. All of those things. And sometimes I just say, step outside of yourself. And if you were your friend, what would you tell them? Would you tell them to keep putting up with that? Would you tell them that you should be doing something different? You should give that grace to yourself as well.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
Yeah. But I want you to talk about your community, because
sure.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so I have a community, and I'm co-hosting it with a good friend of mine, Cozy Stankadis, who's a body talk energy healer, and we meet every week on Zoom, and it's a live Zoom link for like 30 minutes or so. And we talk about topics that are kind of pertinent to people going through their journey of awakening. And there's so much stuff there. There's the resources, there's tools, there's healing, there's community, and also support for people who are on their awakening journey. So you could go to my website. It's drdoloresfazzino.com, and there's a little tab that you could check on that's called I'm Awake Now What, and it'll give you more information about what is going on with the community, and we'd love to have you and support you in any way that you can.
That's awesome, because as we were saying, things are shifting and people are waking up, and we were talking before we came on, I think it's important to be able to have, and people know that part of my belief is community is a big part of your total wellness, and having the right relationships around you to support you. So community is super important. And don't worry, everybody, if you don't know how to spell that, because I'm going to put all the links in the show notes. Fazzino has 2 Z's, by the way. Or if you're in the US, I guess it's a Z, isn't it?
Yes.
Canadian. I just identified myself as Canadian. Z.
That's okay. I love my Canadian friends. I have a lot of them. Yep.
Oh my goodness. So awesome. Dolores, when we started talking before we pressed record, I'm like, shoot, we got to press record, because we were having an excellent conversation.
Well,
and
I
would keep going, but respecting everyone's time, because that's what we do. We're going to start to wrap up. But before we go, do you have a final word or words of wisdom for us?
I do. The longest relationship you're ever going to have in your life is the one you have with yourself. It's not going to be with your spouse. It's not going to be with your kids. It's not going to be with your parents. It's with you. Start treating yourself like your own best friend, because you're the only person you got.
Yes, 100% true. Another truth bomb dropped. Thank you so much for all of this, for all of your wisdom, and for building community, because, kudos to you for creating that. I think that's outstanding.
Thank you very much, Heather. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Friends in podcast land, send this to your community, because we all need to go through this together. You go through it better holding hands. Take my word for it. I will see you next time. Hello, my friend. I hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you found it useful and you're like me and you want to help others, please share this, comment, like, subscribe, all of those things that will help this podcast to be found by more people. And if you found it useful, there's a chance that someone else will find it useful as well. If you ever have any questions, I am here to answer your questions. I would love to help you. My direct email address is info@heatherstewart.coach. You can also find me at heatherstewart.coach. And if you go over to my website, you will find copies of the podcast. You'll find the link to my Instagram and my Facebook. And I do have a personal request, because I do want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. So if you could give me a review, and my friend, I would love if you gave me a good one. If you could share this, if you could send it out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope that you have an amazing day. I hope that you are finding your way back to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend. Be well, and we will see you again next time.